Scene 7-5, take 4.
I had my life basically recorded on 8mm film growing up, and I was very lucky to have that. And when I started to write The Surface, I had lost my parents recently, and I started looking at these films and realizing what a gift this was. Evan seeing Peter's life in films and taking that as a full piece of a life, taking that as something that he's missing, that he didn't have. And that's what helps attract him to Peter. I found that was just a really interesting tool.
There are many elements of this story that were really interesting to me. And this is just in a small example. This is home movies influencing someone's life. But I just found that visual so powerful as I was reading it. I was like, yes, I love the idea of taking someone else's history and claiming it as your own and your life changing because of it.
He, was a foster child that he never knew his dad, and he was looked after by various different foster families. Having like a looking glass into someone else's life, of someone who knows their father and knows what they look like, it's kind of really interesting for him to watch a real family structure and watch someone grow up in a real environment rather than his, fake family environment.
First off, I love casting. I love actors, and I always want to see them succeed. And throughout the years, as I've lived in Los Angeles, I sort of mentally collect actors and sort of like a little Rolodex. So it's always sort of in my being to sort of want to, in some way, work with a great actor.
Here. Yeah, you did. Where is it? There it is. There, you can see it now.
Nicholas's character, Chris, Nicholas came in for a different part originally, and as soon as he started reading for Fish, Michael and I were both just like, he's not Fish, but he's very much sort of a Chris, a different take on Chris that we hadn't imagined. But I love Nicholas. I love the way that he reads a line and makes it completely unique from anything else. And he just really had this sort of New York Andrew McCarthy sort of prep school vibe to him that I loved. I loved the way he read, and I loved his appearance. And what was great is that he was able to transform into that character, because I don't think naturally he's like the role of Chris at all.
How'd you guys
Are you happy?
What do you mean?
It's a simple question. Are you happy with Peter?
I'm very much from Kaiser, Oregon. Not super well educated. I don't have any kind of degree or anything, and I'm not well read, and I think maybe it was theater, having a theater background and having that standard American speech kind of ingrained. But also that is his background. That's very much where I thought he would have come from. I didn't really see him as as a West Coast kind of person.
Which is what I always do, I sort of start with people that I know that I think will fit the bill. Michael Redford, when I first read the script and I saw the role of Peter, I just visually had him in mind. Michael and I had worked with him briefly on Adults Only, a short film that we worked on together. I was excited to sort of see if he could do more than that. And he really, honestly, was the only person that I had in mind. We called in a couple other people, but he really was sort of the first person that I thought of.
For some reason, I always ended up playing a cop. I've played a cop on many roles, a cop, detective, kind of odd, interestingly creepy characters. So it was really nice playing something that was actually more in tune with my own personality.
I don't know, I guess I forgot about so much until I saw this.
I think I probably went with 3 different actors for Evan, even in the first audition process. And they were all completely different, but would have been perfect for the role.
Finding the role of Evan was a difficult and it was a challenge, but we knew that going into it because he really was the person that was the common thread and was the sort of lead, obviously, in the film. And so he had to be important. And however it came to be, we ended up with Harry. And I'm so glad that we did, because I think that Michael didn't really necessarily see Harry as Evan. Harry is very sort of androgynous and pretty with long hair, and I think Michael wanted someone that had a little more edge and so was a little dirtier.
I kind of wanted him to be not physically scarred, but I wanted him to be just, quirky enough that we could believe that he had showed a past in his face in some way, in some physical way. In walks Harry, who's a model and is extremely beautiful to look at. So I was afraid that he might not have the vulnerability. But once we started working with him and talking to him about it and doing some tests, and he's you just can look into his eyes, and his eyes just tell a story.
It was the first lead role I was cast in. Before that, I was flown to New York and shot a sci-fi film called Cajon City. And so I shot that in New York, and then immediately after came back and shot The Surface. Well, I've been interested in acting my entire life. My mum was an actress, so from a very young age I started acting classes and whatnot. But I wanted to model since I was about 14, but since I was so short I couldn't do anything until I was finished high school. And then I decided to take a holiday to Los Angeles. And I loved the vibe of the city and felt I want to move here and really pursue my career. My mum's from the States, so that was really helpful. And being around so many American people, I kind of picked up on the accent naturally. But when I really came to LA, I already had the experience of studying an American accent in New York. And so it became quite natural. And then just through sheer practice and, listening to people around me, I was able to, transform my accent to something that was, at least bearable for people to listen to.
Are you depressed?
No. I don't know. Thinking about leaving school. Maybe get a job and save up some money for a while. Well, I use clues from the script to, define kind of a history for Evan as I felt necessary. As he kind of mentions that he, was a foster child, that he never knew his dad, and, he was looked after by various different foster families. And all other, histories of his life were kind of just taken from clues and just things that I made assumptions based on the script. But there was a lot of imagination that needed to come into play for me to create a really three-dimensional character with a full history.
You know what, you are what's wrong with me. What did I do? I don't need you anymore because you don't need me anymore.
It's difficult to see what their connection is initially because it shows us the end of their relationship. But obviously there was something that drew them together. They obviously had a connection. There was obviously something there. But this, relationship kind of fell into this, controlling, manipulative boyfriend situation, which Chris appears to be. And I think that Evan, feeling lost, doesn't know what he wants to do. He doesn't know if he can leave this relationship because he's been so used to it. So he has a difficulty in, moving on because it's what he knows and it's what he's comfortable with.
It's money well spent. Don't even have anything to play them on.
I think what he does from his perspective in total truth and in what he actually thinks is right and what he thinks is helpful and what he wants Evan to be. I don't think he would ever think of himself as a bad person. I talked to Michael too about how I really didn't think Chris was someone who would raise his voice. I thought, even if he were to get upset, it would be very kind of whiny kind of way, not so much like a screaming kind of person.
Better not be a joke because it's not very funny if it is.
Yes?
Hi, is Harry here?
Not right now, why?
Well, I bought this camera in his yard sale last month, and he said if I got the film process that I could use his editor.
When my character first sees Evan come up to the door, I think he's a little taken aback. And I think he doesn't quite know what to do with this young man in his presence. Because my character, Peter, is literally 20 years older than Evan. Yet I have a relationship with him. But, Evan comes into Peter's life at a point where he is still struggling to find, a father figure and family that he's never had, So I think he's naturally drawn to authority figures and somebody to really kind of take him in and take care of him. When Evan brings him this film that is basically a reliving of his past, I think he's pretty blown away for one, but I think he's pretty appreciative and he's pretty enamored with Evan, and I don't even think Peter realizes the depth of why he's attracted to Evan. And Peter is at a point in his life where I think unbeknownst to him, he is desperate to go back in time and take care of this young boy that he lost when he was a teenager. He's also just lost his father. And I think he has a lot of feelings of loss and loneliness, and he's, processing the father-son relationship. Look, you can just take it all.
Are you sure your dad won't mind?
Yeah, he died a few weeks ago.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
Unfortunately, while we were shooting this, my father got ill and passed away. So we had shot, a lot before, and I think we actually had to delay some of my scenes because my father was getting sick. I had to go up to San Francisco. He then passed away, and it was oddly paralleling to my character's experience and exactly what he was going through. So, I was literally processing the emotions of losing a parent as we had to shoot these scenes where my character was processing those same emotions.
There's a scene in like a road trip scene where both Michael and I were like shooting a lot of the moments between like the friends on the road trip, and he used most of the moments used were actually the ones that I took because I really followed them along and took part in like everything they were doing, and I was the one just filming it. And so it was really interesting to be on that side of the camera. I think it's quite fun filming. It's a really interesting process. And also he taught me how to actually put two pieces of film together and like do all the old school stuff, and he actually taught me how to do it, so it looked real on film.
I was very lucky to have a number of very strong mentors in my life. And I had several teachers that were very integral to my early life and sort of pointing me in the right direction. I'm very grateful to all of them. My grandfather had one of the first home movie cameras in the 40s and was taking home movies back then. So we have home movies of my mother as a teenager. I think we're at a family reunion, and I was a teenager. My father was tired of shooting home movies of us, so he handed me the camera and told me to go shoot things, and that was really kind of the beginning. And then my grandfather taught me to edit.
There were two scenes with Evan that were kind of special to me. One was the, the first real intimate scene in the bedroom, as we were just kind of, very casually exploring each other's bodies and really noticing the tattoo artwork on each of our bodies and just kind of sharing what it meant to each other.
It's a symbol of fearlessness. When I was young, I was really afraid.
And I also liked the very end of the film when I come out of my bedroom late at night and I see that he is once again up late at night watching his films and the past, and he stops there for a minute and we have a conversation, and he asked me what was I asked to be in my life, and my issue was that I was asked to be everything. And then I returned the question on him and asked him what he was meant to be in his life, and he said nothing. And it just, to me, that was really a pivotal point in my character realizing where I was in my life and realizing where he was in his life. And that, wow, we are so different.
A little more sense memory is just think about the feeling of the water creeping up down. Yeah, it can be a little more dreamy.
Your film made me see things differently. My dad, Mark.
The other really lovely scene between the two of them at the fire pit, Peter talks about his friend in the movies that he grew up with, and how things had changed for him, and how he sort of dropped out and eventually died. And I put that in there because I always wrestle with that relationship that, you wish you could have helped someone more than you did.
I think the beach sequence is my favorite. And what was great is that, we have Sam, Kyle, and Jenny, who played Shell, Fish, and Amy, and they're like a boatload of fun. And then Harry, who's played as Evan, and he's a lot of fun. And, we had there was an idea of, what we wanted to accomplish when we got there, but we ended up just like having a blast, and luckily it worked out.
Get ready.
Something that really great that Michael did was give us the freedom to explore, you know, other parts of the characters with improvisation. And he used like a handheld camera, so it made it very easy to, you know, him work around us. I guess I was just playing the piano one day at the house that we were filming at, and then they said, why don't we include it in the film? And that was a really great part of the filming process, is there are a lot of moments that, you know, last minute were kind of, let's just include it in the film.
I mean, I do know what I find fascinating about the film is that it is primarily about the journey of this one young man, you know, to find family and love and fulfillment and, you know, to better himself through the process. But it's really a study of three very different men, and they all have three completely different outlooks on this concept, you know, and neither one is right or wrong. They're just three men trying to get through this thing called life, and all they have is their own experiences to go by.
People are going to take a lot of different things from the film, that being that, you know, it's okay to love who you want to love. There's nothing wrong with being lost and like trying to find yourself through different mediums, you know, and it's like, it's about kind of finding your passion and finding your freedoms and finding all that kind of thing. And, you know, it's kind of like a coming of age film for Evan, and I think that's really important for people to understand. And yeah, it was a really fantastic movie to shoot, and I'm really excited to see how people see it.
What really draws me is you know, are these people. Stories are stories, but I think the people in the story are the most interesting things. So I hope they like that, and I hope that they think about it. I hope they think about the themes in the film and walk away, and maybe it, you know, makes them think of their own life in a different way.